So, welcome everyone to our first session, at least in this room. Just take a seat, I will introduce you in a second. We have a bunch of panelists here as we're going about to talk about AI and the future of digital. Oh, wait a second, that's my seat. Daniel? Sorry.
You need to get to my side, sorry for that.
Otherwise, I need to look left and right the whole time. That's a bit uncomfortable.
Let me do it for you.
Thanks. Very good. So, welcome everyone. I'm sitting here and I'm just going from left to the right with Kiril. Dr. Kiril Panev is Director of Data Engineering, Data Science at Project A, is building modern data setups and also worked in academia before for more than 14 years already. Thanks for being here, Kiril. Next to him, Tamer. Our Chief Product Officer, more than 20 years of experience in building digital products. It's quite a lot, actually. Daniel, supporting us from as a software engineer from Google, so bringing. That's maybe wrong if I say that the software engineering side to the table. Really passionate about building modern cloud-native applications, mainly on Google serverless technologies. And last but not least, Denis Turkov. VP Engineering at Spryker, one of our portfolio companies, also technologist by heart with more than 15 years of experience in building software architectures, leading product delivery and large development teams. Really great to have all of you here. Thanks for joining. It's a pleasure. So what we're going to talk about, I mean, we all see that generative AI is taking more and more of work over that we're doing on a daily basis, right? And what we would like to discuss today is what is the impact and also the potential future of all of these approaches in the development of digital products nowadays. And we actually aligned a bit up front so that we are not completely unprepared, I would say. And I would actually like to start with the topic of, so what is to try to understand what is the impact of AI on the topic of digital product development. And starting maybe with Tamer, looking your direction, right, as kind of the product person in that group, how has AI influenced kind of the digital product development in your respective fields? So what is it used for in your work? What do you see in companies that you work with?
Yeah, so there's a thing where actually generative AI or the usage of large language models, especially like ChatGPT as one of the one big things, or BART or something, is actually used everywhere, right? I mean, you have on the one side, you have very specific use cases, right? So, for example, trying to get your user stories right, formulate research goals, analyzing survey results. But on the other side, and this is the majority, it's actually used for very generic use cases, mainly in terms of communication, writing things, making sure that your messages be concise and being brought across. So it's actually used quite a lot. I also surveyed a couple of people, and I found this quite interesting because, yeah, a quarter of the people don't use generative AI on a daily basis. But if you are on the ground and just like doing it, I can't imagine why these people are not using it, because it's so powerful and it just like makes our life so much easier, and the collaboration and the results so much better.
Thanks for sharing that. If you say 25% are not using it, but it also means like 75% are using some kind of generative AI in their daily product work. I think that's also a good sign, I would say, right? Or not a good sign, but the sign of importance of the technology in general. Kiril, I mean, on the data side, right, especially in data science, you're typically the people who are kind of building machine learning models, right? How do you perceive that on your side?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, or should I start by laying the land of analytics and data for the group here, because it's not a data conference, it's rather a tech conference. So in general, in data, you have to first understand like what people want, what kind of business questions need to be answered. Here, yeah, you need to talk to people. So Gen AI doesn't really help, or can't really help too much. And then from a technical perspective, you need to like get the data in to the system, transform it somehow that it makes sense. You apply business logic to it. and then you expose it to the end users for consumption. This is usually done through like building dashboards for business intelligence, and you have data products where you build machine learning models that can serve some kind of purpose. And here, I would say not many things have changed. So GenAI helps in some of these tasks. So like getting the data into some kind of centralized storage, it can help you there because you can get like code for ingesting data from standard APIs, for example, to be specific. So there it helps. It improves the efficiency of people, and also it's not one of the tasks that people really like too much by reading API documentation and then need to kind of figure out how to get the data from it. Then for the transforming of the data part, it doesn't really help, or it can't yet. Let's see. For the consumption part, it can help, but just to a limited extent, I would say. So for simple questions, it can be correct and useful, but for more complicated things, not really. Because like in data, you have this correctness thing that you have to have the correct results. If you want to know how much your revenue is, you want to know what's your correct revenue. You don't want to know 80% of the time what's your correct revenue. So it's like a mixed bag. There are some improvements, but it's not as magical as in the demos that one you see online that say, oh, you don't need analysts anymore.
Stephan specifically asked to disagree actively, so we need to. I think, Tamer, do you have something?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think what you're saying is right. Talking about data, but I think it's qualitative data, and this is where we make like huge impacts in development. Let me give you an example, right? I mean, we are running a survey, right, and asking for qualitative feedback. Like typically you needed 1 to 2 minutes to tag down any answer of the user, and what I can where I spend tons of time to actually understand what the customer really wants and group it in the right way. Now it can be done with just a few minutes. And this brings and opens up, in my point of view, a new world where you can actually have qualitative analysis, make it data-driven, and you can also start to combine it with the quantitative data world. And suddenly you become a new space where you can understand your customers, what you build, and what you have in your environment and company in a way that
many users. And I agree, even though we need to disagree, I agree here.
Because it's obvious, obviously, right?
Oh no, it was disallowed. It was disallowed. Yeah.
Going badly.
No, I think that first of all, I agree with the part that marketing promise is now far away, like far from what we actually observe, right? Like looking into actual statistical data, the marketing promise is like 10 times more. You probably know these vendors that claim 96% on automation for developer experience for repetitive tasks. Never happened. 46% for non-repetitive tasks. Didn't happen. But there is one part which I disagree is the complexity of the problems. I actually think that you can solve quite complex problems, really deep technology, technical or product problems, with actually better formulation of a problem, right? Like what actually you want, because it depends how you formulate it. We will probably come to this later, but I think what I've seen so far, that the range of this application tasks is so broad, from really simple, like day-by-day doing, to really complex strategical tasks which require analysis, right? Like which require data and analysis. It's perfect statistical machine.
Are you a good prompt engineer then?
I think, as more you learn, as less you think you are capable of. But I passed at least 2 trainings myself at the point, like 2 months ago, when I thought I'm a good prompt engineer by this time. I thought I'm good. But then I passed training, and I found it's so much more you can get from it. Like you can still play with different formats and get deeper. I don't think I'm good. at it.
Yeah, me neither. I'm terrible at it. And I thought I'd just type into a box what I want the machine to do, but no, there's books on that now. And I find it actually very breathtaking what actual prompt engineers, or how prompt engineering, how deep it goes. And yeah, I'm really bad at it too.
I think that's maybe then a topic for the next tech day, right? But I think it's interesting, right? Because I think I couldn't agree more in terms of we are learning and doing our kind of first steps in the direction, and some are a bit further, right? And some are just at the beginning. Dennis, maybe looking your direction, right? I mean, you're leading like a large team at Spryker of software engineers, software architects, and so on and so forth, right? And you said you did a training yourself that influenced your life, at least, right? Hopefully in a positive way. So the question is, if you look into your teams, how were they impacted or influenced by that whole topic of generative AI? I think speaking in something like GitHub Copilot or Tab 9 or whatever, right? So assisting in coding, but maybe also looking onto the kind of specification side of things.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like first, what I think that the most disruption is actually didn't yet happen. So we still will expect more changes as more join the wave. And it's funny enough, but I got very similar statistics within our organization in August. We ran a survey, or like quite comprehensive survey on AI, and we found that 26% were not using AI on daily basis. They just tried out sometimes. And only about 15% were using it on daily basis for their actual work and tasks. So there is a lot to develop, right? So it's a lot to change. And this is an organization where we give GitHub Copilot for free, like the available for all teams. AWS Whisper for available for teams. AWS Bedrock playing out with like at this time beta version, but now full. SageMaker, everything like OpenAI keys free, like all architects and team members have it. In this organization, still, can you imagine that 26% didn't yet try it for their daily business tasks? It's crazy, right? So and I think in terms of the shift and the change that I observe, that's what the really big mind shifts happening here, that we are not anymore a coder. We are code reviewers from the very first minute of working with code base. You just start your morning coffee and you start working on a ticket, you already start getting suggestions, you're getting the ideas how to implement certain. And this mind shift is super complicated for those people who don't excel at code reviewing practice, who don't have it as an organizational process. They really don't understand what to do next, right? Like, how is this so much change? Before, there you go, I was writing code as hell, and this was my job description. I was code writer probably. But now it's really changes that in that very dramatic way for people, that now you are changing to code reviewer, even if you are a junior developer.
I actually really like that thought, because I think that's missing. I don't think we read enough code. We tend to write it. Yeah. I think it's also one of the things that's extremely important for open source. And we've seen the proliferation of programming languages that are geared to be read, to be understood by large masses of people. And I actually like that thought, that we were forced to be reviewers more than writers.
Absolutely. And what is drama here? It was not typical for junior and middle roles, right? Like usually it's a prerogative of a senior lead engineer to actually get masses of code reviewed. Now the shift is that you are a junior developer, you're just at the beginning of your career, maybe your first 3 years, but the very first day you start code reviewing. It's amazing.
So you're saying that all your junior developers are AIs now, and you're promoting everybody else to senior?
Yes, we tried. It didn't work out yet, but let's see.
Very good. Maybe, Daniel, also looking into your direction, right? I mean, you're doing a lot of development side or using Google, and I think you also have like a lot of insights of what is going on in Google itself, right? So how does it look there? So how do you perceive that whole topic of AI influencing your product development process?
I want to reiterate what you said, Tamer, about how it's everywhere and how people are using it in every conceivable way. Essentially, the thing, when you think about it, it's a universal interface, right? You put some text in, you get some text out, in most cases. And then when you think about that a little bit more, it reminds me of something, and it reminds me of Unix composability. Remember that, command lines and you're just piping text from one output to the other? Hey, it's LangChain, but kind of for AIs, right? So it's about the composability of these tools, right? And also the universal interface, which makes it applicable to almost everything that we do. And that's why it's so easy to understand, and everybody knows how to work with it all of a sudden, at least for a little bit, unless you get down into prompt engineering. So, so for me personally, I obviously use it a lot. I build software that use it. I build software with it. I speak to a lot of organizations on how to do both of these things. But I think the more interesting bit for the audience today is how it's actually what's happening inside of Google. And that's actually pretty remarkable, because I can't remember something being so disrupted inside of an organization that's now a quarter of a century old. And it's everywhere. I believe that there is some kind of a deeply rooted fear of repeating the mistakes that happened to Yahoo at some point. So like being left out, not doing enough right now to invest into the future, which is clearly this. It's been doubt at Cloud 2.0, which is just generative AI, which I highly disagree with, but I've heard it. So Google is racing to putting it everywhere, right? So this is in consumer products. I mean, you've probably heard of Bard, but generative large language transformers is something that's not really new, right? So all of you have probably used Google Translate before, which is exactly that, right? So consumer products getting it with Bard, but it's also going to be in search at some point, right? We're building something called generative search experience, which just gives this interface, or kind of revamps the search experience in total. But then more importantly, I believe that the really interesting bit is what's happening in the enterprise space, right? So first and foremost, there's things like Duet AI, which is just like, think of it like an overarching name for just applying these assistive technologies into everything in Workspace, and also in Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ, all those APIs, in the cloud consoles. So everywhere you go, and it's going to happen very soon, and which this is also going to tackle this, what do you say, like 75%, 26 don't use it? Yeah, that's going to be very different very soon, and we're all going to be using it without knowing it, right? So there's, so everything essentially gets this kind of side pane where you can talk with an intelligence about what's going on inside of, search, Gmail, inside of your Google Doc, in your sheets. You can generate large tables of sheet information there. If you're stuck in cloud platform and you're like, hey, how do I build this architecture? The thing tells you where to click on and all that stuff. So it's going to be everywhere in Google products, and not just from a user experience perspective, but then there's also the other components to it, much like, for example, ChatGPT's API endpoints. We have those too, right? So it's also about providing these enterprise-grade technologies and capabilities to our enterprise users, so they can basically build their own products with it, like chatbots. They can use it to extract large amounts of maybe quantitative or qualitative information out of large corpora of text or databases, and yeah. So in short, it's everywhere, Stephan. It's everywhere.
It's actually not a surprise, if I'm honest. I think this is, so I talked to someone, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, and that person compared kind of the rise of AI with kind of the evolution of the internet, right? So something that is kind of there is like a bit of green area or green field, right? So no one really knows where to go there. I think what I would like to do is to maybe, and putting a disclaimer on that, right? It's highly speculative, but looking into what do you think is the future of AI in digital product development, right? So I brought a couple of questions to me. So something, I mean, you said it already, right, Daniel? AI tells you how to build a specific architecture, right? And I mean, you still need to tell it what architecture is right for your problem, I guess, right? But the question will be, are we potentially going to design products just for AI in the future, right? So not for human usage anymore, but just making AIs work together. I think it would be super interesting to maybe also look into the software engineering side initially, right? Because APIs is like where software already interacts with each other, right? Is it something that you foresee going that direction, or we're just building products for AI products?
What do you mean by building products for AI?
And this is exactly the point. So
are we talking about like a sentient general artificial intelligence that has its own bank account and that wants to watch Netflix?
Maybe. Actually,
I don't know.
Maybe,
I mean, that's highly speculative part, right? So about the future.
Yeah, this is exactly the point. So that's what we already see now, even in e-commerce. There are more projects that just do sales during the conversation. So you can imagine you buy socks now, just having a conversation with a chatbot. But then you think of, okay, but there is always a match with this vendor, but not with another vendor. And how the data from these merchants and vendors came to this system, right? That will be a question where vendors will be spending time and actually preparing data to be friendly for machine learnings or for augmented AI augmented results pattern, whatever. But you need to prepare your product and service that AI can reach it out. If you are invisible for AI, for example, if your data is private, if your API is limited, or it cannot combine on this LLM, it cannot take an LLM and put it on together, then probably you won't be on this race. So it's the same as it was this SEO before, right? Like search engine optimization. Now it still exists, right? And maybe completely changed the methodology. But I think I would expect something similar for AI. Just recently, actually not recently now, three months ago, that I had a test of a tool which was a kind of Twitter for AI bots. It's only a Twitter.
That can be good.
It's called I think it's called Chirper. Anyway, you can find it. There are people not allowed. So the social network where humans are not allowed. Only the way you can get into, you can build your bot and provide keys to it. And I built my bot, by the way, this time. I built, okay, this will be an AI technologist and wants to talk about philosophy of AI and the future of AI. I built this bot and give it a name, and then I just could observe how it was starting to following up other bots with similar minds. So basically, if there was something similar in description, they were following each other, and they had a conversation, which is unbelievable. They had a conversation the next day, a Twitter-like thread, talking about what will be the future of AI. So how it will, what will be the positive outcome of AI for the future, and they had a conversation about that, right? And people were just. You could actually pay in this social network to give them a topic, to recommend them a topic. And then they have AIs with different views and differently combined. So they have different background setups. They have a conversation about it, and you can get into outcomes. That's kind of a product purely for AI.
I think we shouldn't do a mistake to humanize AI too much at this kind of point. I mean, like, it's still a tool. And for us, it's might gonna be mind-blowing because it starts to reach like human level capabilities, right? But think about a caterpillar, right? I mean, like, how strong is a caterpillar compared to our muscles, right? It's just like, I don't know, millions of X like more powerful. And suddenly, just because we are moving away from pure power to minds, I think we shouldn't do a mistake that this is still a tool. And when we're thinking about products should serve kind of people needs in the end, right? And this is like the underlying kind of thing. If it doesn't do that, it's not going to succeed on the long term. I mean, there's definitely playgrounds right now, and I think it's super exciting to explore how this will do things and what this kind of mind's going to be if bots talking to other bots, and there's some kind of unified thing going on there. But I think the big power is it's a tool. We should use it as a tool. And everything else is just like getting its own way, right?
I think it's not about mixing AI with humans, like and replacing them. This is not the substitutional process what's happening. People still, like even this chirper network, there was a human value as a summary of these conversations, right? But what the point is that now you don't need to call it a human, that they have products. So we would build products that AI would use them. For instance, like Snowflake or other middlewares, what humans themselves used it so far, right? Before we will find that ERPs, which are not humans, use and consume this data and products and services, and there is no difference between an ERP and AI now.
I think the very interesting kind of development, if we look into the future, is, I mean, back in the days, we've talked about human-computer interaction, right? So we had humans, and humans are very unspecific. They are not, you know, like full of data, whatever. They need context to understand what they mean. And on the other side, we have computers, which are just like, I mean, very data-specific machines. You need to have actual things that you need to put in there. And what I found very interesting to see, or how this development is going to be, is, you know, that with this large language model, we can be suddenly able to interact with a machine in the way that we as humans would interact with other humans, right? And we can take this machine to make the translation between unstructured data to structured, right? And I found it very interesting to see if this will create a new category of ways on how we do things. To make it specific, let's imagine an ERP system, right? You enter an order, right? Instead of saying like, okay, I need the order number, I need the product items and the price and whatever, you can say like, hey, this guy called me and he wants to order some shoes, right? And then the interaction actually starts, and the entire technology from being a interface where you type in things might gonna disappear more and more and get out of our way in our daily business. And this is probably very, very interesting future.
I think computer interfaces have changed a couple of times, right? So we started text-based, then went graphical, and everybody thought like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. We're only going to do this. And then we had like assistants, voice assistants and all that stuff. And people were like, we're only going to do this. And then I'm still using Xterm and Vim, and it's 2023. I think I'd be cautious to kind of paint the advent of this revolutionary new interface to something that people might not go with, right? They're still fighting over tabs and spaces. And so I can also see a world where specifically developers will step away from it.
This is what I can echo, actually, because this is also what we see, that developers at a certain point, and I think you see it statistically, even in your organization, they step away because they think it doesn't provide enough value. But I would like to stay one second with a question. I mean, Kiril, in the data space, probably you are the ones who are creating products for AIs, right? Because in that space, you typically create a potential data foundation to then operate on or fuel the machine learning model.
So I think like, so first, just to go back to what was said, like sentient stuff, this will not happen in our lifetime. And this is recorded, I stand by it. With the current architecture, this is not happening. Regarding, also to follow up on what Denis said, and this is like one of the biggest benefits, I think, from a data perspective and this whole generative AI movement, is that companies and everybody, basically, they are seeing the value in having their own data modeled and curated in a good shape that can be usable for, it can be generative AI as well. But I think as a byproduct, the most important thing will be that companies will invest in their data teams again. So, I mean, there was this layoffs, I don't know, last year, in the past, whatever number of months. Tech teams were affected, data teams were very much affected as well.
I think even more, right? Like data.
Yeah, data team, because like you're not customer facing. The ROI of data is always questionable. They were affected a lot. But now with this Gen AI movement, actually the budgets for data teams are increasing again, because companies are realizing that the value is not just by sending prompts to OpenAI or to Google, but rather utilizing your own data. And then, I mean, there are some dangers there that people can just think that they just can push the data into a data lake and then magic will happen. This is not working yet. but you need to transform the data into a good shape and have semantic layers on it, which will explain what the data is, everything in code and text, and then somehow you can expose it to some kind of an LLM model or a trained model for it that can answer some of the questions. But I would still say we're very, very far away in answering complex questions on structured data. I have to be specific here so that we don't misunderstand each other. So for text, it works. Not all the time, but it works most of the time. For structured data, it's still very far away because like there was a recent Google paper even. It's called SQL Palm or Palm SQL or something. They trained the model specifically for this, and it answers the questions correctly 80% of the time, which is not good in data. You want to be, like in structured data, you have to be correct. But even this 80% of time, it's done on a benchmark data set that has 6 tables on average. And it has 25 columns in total on average. If you look at a company's like data in a data warehouse, it's much, 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 much more complicated than that. And I think that there will be some incremental improvements there. It will be used for like answering the most simple, like a chatbot, simple questions. What's my revenue last year? How many rides did we have with that specific scooter and so on? For more complicated stuff, I still don't see it happening anytime soon.
I can invite you for our demo.
Yeah. Happy to see it.
Yeah. Actually sit next to you here together in the ground again, and then whether your prediction actually is true or not, right? I would like to maybe ask you for like a short answer. I mean, in the direction of everything that we do in our daily work has still something to do with creativity, right? So we are still the ones who are like thinking about the problems, trying to solve them, also with the help of AI, obviously, right? But thinking it further, I think the tool that you mentioned, or the social network for AIs, is maybe a step in that direction. I would actually ask the question, do we need human creativity anymore, or will everything be done by AI and we just maybe stitch stuff together where the AI does it themselves? I mean, Tamer, I see you like on the, so maybe it's a very good starting point for you, right?
It's a very, very interesting kind of thing. It's also like interesting to explore around the creativity part. And I think the stitching part will probably be automated first before the full creativity comes first. But nevertheless, I mean, the tools are really great in order to spark inspiration into things, right? You can start with something. It's, I mean, it's the white paper problem, right? When you need to start something from scratch, you don't know what you're going to do. Like, it's hard to get something done or ideate something. But the moment you start with something, you see the first results, suddenly you can, as a brain, understand what you really want. And this kind of expression of what we really want is something that you can, you know, like automate over in the future. I think it's going to take some time till this creativity can be fully automated, because what the models are not very good at the moment, exploring with that one, is connecting the dots and planning ahead, right? It's not so easy to say, you know what, this is my user problem, this is my company goal, this is my resources that I have available, now ideate the right product that I can build out of that one. So it's just like too far away from the logical thinking here.
You tried that?
Yes, I've tried that a lot. Yeah, I'm playing around a lot with these kind of things, and so far it's just like very much, you know, one question, one answer, but it's not, you know, like for seeking things in that way.
It's interesting that we even, in 2023, that we are even talking about that. That there are 50 shades of creativity, but a year ago, if you would have a conversation about AI, we would all say the first will be automated, the very hard work, like people on the fields, working in the fields or collecting potato or doing something, really hard work, robotic things, automation of these things, right? Now, after a year, it actually came from the back door, from the white collars and the blue collars, right? Those are engineers, the actual creative professions that a year ago we didn't think of. And now, in 2023, we allow ourselves to have a discussion about 50 shades of gray of creativity, where, yes, AI is not capable of doing 100% of what we some of us, you remember the movie, right? Like, can you bring a melody that Beethoven made? But can you?
Yeah, I think it's about those 50 shades. I think it's about what creativity actually means. I honestly believe that training a model versus a human being learning something during its experience and its lifetime is very closely related to one another. I think in most ways, creativity is actually just decomposing something and then reorchestrating it in a different way to kind of express something. I think in most ways, generative AI models, LLMs, can do that today better than human beings can do, but not better than all human beings can do. And also there's something else to it that I can't really put my finger on right now, but I don't think I would go to like a rock and roll show of a band that's just AIs controlling robots. Maybe I would do once, but there's something there that doesn't feel right to me.
It's probably the missing human touch, right?
Yeah,
and the sweat. But maybe robots are even able to sweat in the future, right? If you don't know.
Artificial gym and CrossFit.
I think the interesting question will be: will you be able to differentiate that this is like an AI robotics band or not? Right?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
This is actually interesting. I think what you say, Stephan, that many people, especially in leadership now, need to honestly answer a question: what they do in their position with all the AI automation that they get, and truly answer this question. Because if you are not answering this question, you are out of the market quite quickly. Automated tools will take over. But there is always a part in your job, in your profession, that AI is not today, or in the foreseeable future, at least, taken over. And in each profession, this part is different. So finding what is left for you when everything is automated with AI, it's a challenge for all of us.
I think that's a very good closing, because then it's also like a good direction to the next question, and maybe also to the last question for that panel already. I think we could discuss that still for a couple of hours. Not sure if that's interesting for you then anymore, right? But if you think about a recommendation, right? So if you see the audience here, what would you recommend people in terms of maybe name one or two things that you would recommend to do to make that, so to not end up in a situation, right? To be still part and be at the forefront. Maybe starting off with a few, Denis.
Okay, there's a number of things you can do for sure. Like training, aligning on expectations, on training, getting budget, many things. But actually what I would really start with, especially if you are engineering manager, head of engineering, I would start with raising curiosity. You need to still attract and actually cover this 26% that ever tried the AI for their day-by-day doing. But there is a massive number of people who tried it but don't use it on a daily basis, who are still inefficient. And you can do it by forcing, but it usually ends not well, right? Like people then usually resist to continue. But making an AI story in your organization inspirational, recognizing small results, recognizing those that gave real efficiency, recognizing ideas, that's what I think helps to actually bring your teams together and share the knowledge and excel at AI practice.
Right, Daniel, what about you?
I think we can't avoid it. I think it's gonna, at some point, it's gonna touch everything that we do, specifically digitally. But I would much rather address product managers about this, right? Because I think not having these capabilities or in your product, that's not going to be an advantage anymore sometime soon, but it's going to be a disadvantage not to have them. And I believe that that the proliferation of these things will happen extremely fast. And there are technology decisions to be made, some that are highly risky you need to do a lot of investment into these things, like hire very smart people. They are very expensive at the moment, and train your own models and trying to go to really to the core of it, or don't do that and use some of the pre-trained larger models that you can do, right? So there's maybe two groups, two people sitting in a hackathon building a product within 12 hours that uses generative AI technologies to a point where you can actually like still have an advantage on the market, but it's not something that will break you financially in terms of time and effort to build this thing. So I guess my final advice to people building digital products is get it in, try and understand how it can help your product in the best way. Start with low barriers of entry technologies and maybe managed services. And then if you realize that this is actually like the core USP of your product, it may be changing towards that it's maybe diversifying towards its generative AI capabilities, then maybe invest after the fact. But pick it up and pick it up quickly.
Thanks a lot. Tamer, I mean,
need to play around a lot with that. It's just like exploring what the capabilities are, doing it over and over again, and you will find the real impactful use cases anyway during that training.
Sorry. How would you encourage people to do that, right? I mean, we learned that, okay, maybe a product is like only 25% not using it, right?
I think the first thing is to remove the fear that this tools will put on the people, right? I mean, like, also when this thing came out, of course, like, hey, the first question was, do we need a product manager? I mean, I can write my specs there, I can run my research questions. I mean, the only thing that I need to talk is to talk to customers and somehow put it together and the ticket system come out. This can be done by an AI, right? But the moment you start to remove the fear and start to embrace this as a new technology, and I mean, we are the people who are creating this kind of new technology, so we should not be fearful about this one, right? And we'll not get away anyway. So what can we do? Play around with that one, figure out what it can do, and be open to whatever changes will come, because it will change the roles that we have and the organization structure. But I'll better be the one who is at the forefront of that instead of the one who's looking at this kind of field or train passing by and understanding that I missed the point.
Those who have fear about AI and tools, look in all these releases every week, how many new services and tools released. The entry level is not so high yet. Yeah, today, in 2023, the entry level is very low. In the following years, the entry level will be hard to achieve. Those companies and teams that started today, they will be so far ahead of us if we are not taking this challenge today. And just as an example, a month ago, I had a panel discussion on AI, and I asked for people who have actual hands-on experience. And many answered to me, yeah, we could give a marketing speech or a little business storytelling, but who have really hands-on experience? And there were really a small bunch of people who could join, who were actual practitioners on this story. So today, it's really easy to enter the story, play around, try it out. You like the tool, it doesn't matter what tool is about, because you just understand the basic principles, how to approach this.
It's also incredibly fun. I mean, these things generate so much weird stuff, and you can build really fun tools with it. So I don't think there's a lot of fear to be removed. I think it's something that can be picked up in a very playful way. Just build stuff that, there's so much that's possible right now, and you can hammer together over a weekend, and it's just going to make you smile and laugh and giggle, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would really be curious for the answer from Kiril, right? Because he's like not a skeptic, I would say, right? But seeing it, the what?
Realist.
A realist. Okay, then maybe bring in the realist perspective on your take.
There's a difference between a skeptic and a realist. So I think it will be unavoidable. So that's for sure. And if you compare it to the iPhone or App Store moment, like if it's so going to be everywhere around us, it will be unavoidable not to use it. I will disagree that it will be more difficult to get into it if you don't have an app, whatever. Started building apps first, and the companies that started doing it 5 years ago, Doesn't mean that the companies that did it, the first ones, are better. So I would do that parallel there. I think that for all developers, it will be just natural to use it. It will increase productivity. For all companies as well, I think it will be also natural to try to use it. I think everybody will realize the value of having proprietary data. And this is the best part of it, because companies will have to invest in modeling and curating and collecting all their data and make it available. Some of them will make money through Gen AI, but a lot of them, just as a byproduct, will benefit in having their data in order.
Cool. Thanks a lot for all of the insights, and nothing to add from my side. So time is over. Thanks for joining the panel. Thanks for participating. It was a pleasure. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us for any more questions and follow-up discussions. Thank you.